Yeah.
Yes,
Now
sir.
I welcome you all for today's presentation on emerging trends in human resource management. I am Dr. Subbarao from NTPC. Now let us see some of the similarities and differences between commerce and management. Why this topic has been chosen in a faculty development program of commerce. Actually, it is related to HR, human resource management, right? So what is the basic difference between commerce and management? Actually, management concept has evolved from commerce only. We call business management nowadays, but it is earlier only commerce department was there, and it has branched out from commerce, right? So if we consider commerce as the root and management as the fruit, then we should not forget the roots. Okay, people always think of fruits forgetting the roots. So that is the link between commerce and management in my perspective. So let us see. And there is a big difference between the skills acquired in the colleges and the skills required in the industry or in the business environment. So people are not getting jobs because of that. So how to impart the skills required actually is the important aspect in any branch of commerce or engineering or any branch of education we call, right? So there are certain differences. We will try to bridge those gaps and evolve as a good academician, right? We always call work-life balance. So work and life are treated separately and they try to bridge the gap. But ideally, there is no gap because even while working also, we are living our life, right? So work and life for at least for women at home also they are working, at the workplace also they are working. So work life both are same only, right? So there is no life except work. So ultimately we have to live in a situation that work is our god, work is worship we call, no? So we have to identify happiness in work itself. So there is no separation from work and life. So that is how we should bridge the gap between all these aspects. Skills acquired and skills required should be matched. Commerce and management, all the other disciplines are also very important, and that interdisciplinarity concept is very important as per our new education policy also. So one subject encroaching into other subject is very important, and ultimately we have to build multi-talented professionals at the end of the day. That is the need of the hour, right? So and at the same time nowadays this work-life balance has become a buzzword because of so much of workload. People are having so much of tensions and they want to get rid of those tensions. So if we make the work life so happy, so smooth, then obviously there won't be any gap between work and life. We need not talk about work life balance also. So we have to balance the work in a such a way that people are happily doing the work and enjoying the work. So that is how the new strategies of work-life balance and human resource management comes into picture. And we find a basic difference between the theory and the practical being practical in industry. Theory taught in academia is not matching with the practical needs of the industry. So there is a huge gap we can find in the academia, pedagogy, and the academic structure also. There are a number of modifications we can have because the industry academia collaboration, cooperation, and coordination is lacking, because of which they don't know the industrial needs while designing the pedagogy. So obviously there will be a gap between theory and practical. Moreover, all the management concepts are being taught in the theoretical fashion, but actually what is the ground reality? whether those are applicable in the practical scenario or not, that is another question to be asked. So are we discussing the practical cases in the classrooms? Then only we'll get the practical exposure and we'll be imparting practical skill to the students who are coming out of the colleges. It applies to not only to management but also to engineering and other education scenarios. We find a difference between a management college and a business school. What is the basic difference there? In business schools, most of the business cases are being taught. So that's why they will be very much ready to apply those skills directly on practical scenarios. On field, they will be working very smoothly because they are very well versed with the practical problems and situations, how to deal with that. That is being taught in business schools, whereas in the traditional management colleges, we normally go for theoretical aspects of management, which won't work in practical scenarios. So we have to take some cues from the practical scenarios and discuss the management cases, which will help the students to understand what is happening in the industry, what is happening in the business environment, and what are the practical problems faced there, and how to solve those, how to resolve these problems. They'll have a practical exposure. Just we will be sensitizing the students that these are the different scenarios which you will come across once you go out of the college or once you join an industry or a company. So how to handle those situations, if we make them ready, then that will bridge the gap between the industry and academia. So then they will be very much employable. So the employability depends on the skill, the gap between skills required and skills acquired. So if you are reducing that, then obviously your students will be very much employed. It applies to engineering students, it applies to management, it applies to commerce graduates, anybody. Okay, so the traditional courses and the professional courses, the basic difference is between. Hello.
So sorry to interrupt you, but your voice is breaking down.
Is it so? Yeah. Now is it clear?
Yes, clear.
Okay, thank you. One more important discussion is local versus global. So there are local students, global students, local strategies, local management systems, global management systems. Now we call vocal for local, right? So we want to have self-sustenance. India wants to have self-sustenance. So we have our own models of management, traditional settings, management settings are there already in place. So why to hire somebody's management strategies and apply here in India? Normally, we should understand the culture and the local situations, then which strategy is suitable, that only we need to apply. Okay, in management books, some technique is there that we should not immediately copy and apply here. Okay, we should understand what is the local situation, what is the culture of the society in which you are doing the business, then only you have to apply the strategies accordingly. So normally the management concepts are from US or UK or abroad, right? So we should not directly hire those management strategies and apply here. So we have to indigenize, right? So we have to slightly modify those strategies and apply it to the Indian context. So the context plays an important role when you are applying any management concept, right? So here something is working in India may not work in US. Something working in UK may not work in India. That's what we should understand about the context and the culture, right? So even companies go global. So global recruitment, there, what are the laws, what are the policies in that particular country, and what are the skills there, skill set, and what is our requirement, how to do the recruitment there, what is the policy, what is the procedure being followed, everything we should understand. Then only we can recruit in another country, right? So that is how global strategies of HRM should be done by understanding the context, by understanding the culture of that particular country, of that particular culture, of that particular society. Individual versus team performance. Normally we see individual has certain goals and the team has certain goals. Even the organization has certain goals. The country has certain goals. The world has sustainable goals, right? Sustainable development goals. So in line with all these things, a person's individual goal should be aligned with the team's goal, and team's goal should be aligned with the organizational goal. And this organization will function as per the goals of the country or the state. Then the nations will act as per the requirements of the UN, right? This is how our goals, even individual goals, are being affected by the team goals and the performance as well. So once goals are fixed in such a fashion, the performance also will be reflected. My individual performance will be reflected in the team's performance. Okay, team's performance also influence my own performance. Suppose if the entire team is functioning well, then I will also get motivated and I will function well. And if I'm not functioning well, then the team may also get discouraged and vice versa. So that is how individual performance and team performance are interlinked. So all these are interlinked, right? So we can find differences as well as similarities, and if we see holistically, then there is a minor gap and that gap has to be bridged. Okay, that is how we should integrate all these factors and come with a holistic HRM strategy. So now let us see some of the key areas of HRM. It starts with recruitment, and recently in this pandemic, many people have found this retrenchment, right? So even we have to remove some people from our company, means how difficult it is. You just imagine. So actually we should think of their lives and simultaneously how to remove certain amount of people from a group of people. Again, it is a very difficult decision to be taken by any company. But still, due to pandemic, many companies have taken the decision of retrenchment. And of course, the retirement. Retirement is again a wonderful juncture of life in which both positive and negative emotions are there. So people, after working for so many years, they'll get detached from the organization. And at the same time, they feel very proud to work for a particular company. So both things are there, and that is also looked after by HR. Now, to build values, morals, and ethics to ensure value-based systems in the organization is another important role of HRM. So, which actually all these roles are normally there in the textbooks. We can slightly improvise and think innovatively to add some more value to each and every part of HRM. So there is a huge scope in HRM to go for more innovation. So we can add value to each and every subsystem of HRM practices. So values, morals, and ethics. How to ensure this? Even every company will have vision, mission, and core values. How to actualize these core values? How to bring these values into the DNA of the organization, into the blood of the employees? So that is the important aspect of any HR person. And there are n number of strategies being followed, and we can come up with more innovative strategies, like we can conduct so many awareness programs, or non-conventional meetings, gatherings we can offer, and then we can discuss, we can do competitions on different values and ethics. Policy management, again, strategy will be followed by a policy. After making the policy, how to communicate it throughout the organization. Again, the communication, the policy making, strategy making, there is a role of HRM in that. Policy, making a policy, drafting a policy, taking the approval, even the revisions of any policy, everything should be a management representative's job. That management representative may be from HR also. We find all these terms very often in research. Strategic HRM. Under that, so many aspects are there. Again, sustainable HRM strategies. So one strategy you are making as a short-term goal, of course, but some strategies we will be maintaining throughout. Those are sustainable HRM strategies. And green strategies, green HRM. This is another buzzword nowadays because, of course, today is World Ozone Day. So we should protect ozone layer from depletion. So it is the responsibility of every citizen in the world. So obviously, being HR person also, we should take care of environment. We should consider the HRM has some activities. So any activity done by anybody should be eco-friendly. Okay. So eco-friendly strategies can be adopted in HRM also. So environment is such a thing which can be integrated to all the activities. That's why even in UGC NET also we find environment, irrespective of any specialization, environment questions will be asked. Why? Because every citizen is very much responsible about our environment, about our eco-friendly strategies, right? Activities. So whatever we do, we should protect our environment. So even it applies to HRM also. And digital. Nowadays, everything is digital, and HRM also needs information about the employees, about the date of birth, about the experience, about the skills, about the job requirements, and about what is the manpower there in that particular department, whether it is high, whether it is low, what is the manpower demand, and what is actually there, and what is the gap. That also can be analyzed through your information. For that, information technology is there, and even knowledge management is through information technology nowadays. So knowledge management systems, learning management systems, all these are in place nowadays. So all the training programs are being conducted through online. Even performance management systems, that is also through online. So every HR aspect is well integrated with IT also. That is digital HRM we call, and many researchers have done so much of research on digital HRM, green HRM, sustainable HRM, strategic HRM, etc. And human capital, what is this? Actually, man, machine, material, money, and time. These are our resources. Based on that only we do any activity. In that, man has some special features because he can think, he can set his own goals. So remaining may be our slaves, but man cannot be our slave, right? So we have to just identify the difference between the remaining resources and human resource. So human resource is a wonderful capital given to you. Just we normally call working capital and other capitals, but human capital is the investment you are doing on human resources and what benefit you are getting out of that. So they are applying financial and supply chain principles to human capital. There is a book called Human Capital Supply Chains, right? That is the only book in which they have applied supply chain concepts to human resource management. I have applied supply chain management to skill development. That is, I have developed a skill supply chain. How skill is supplied from the educational institutes, from the society to the industry. And in the industry also, how we are adding value to that supply chain of skill. So that was my research area and my PhD area too. Okay, so I have applied that way. So the concepts of other management can be applied to human resource management, and that will come out with a new HRM areas. That is how the research is progressing, and even ambidexterity, cooptation, so many other areas of research are there in HRM which we need to explore. CSR is another important area of human resource management, that is corporate social responsibility. After this Companies Act 2015, there is an amendment, and in that we need to spend 2% of our PAT, that is profit after tax, need to be spent on CSR. So it has come out with 10 different areas in which we need to spend. Okay, again there is a scope of innovation, and even I also wrote a research paper on that, and many researchers are doing research on CSR and the scope of CSR. Okay, so there should be a committee which need to identify the areas of CSR in which we need to spend the spend 2% of PAT. Okay, so suppose every company is spending on a particular area only, and remaining areas are left out, then there will not be any uniform growth in all the areas which are identified. So that is how so some companies need to spend on those areas like agriculture, and many other areas are there in that needs to be taken care, and research is going on that. And CSR can be used as a branding strategy. Of course, it is a sustainable branding strategy, I feel. Doing CSR means you are doing something great to the society, automatically gives us some brand image. So branding on sustainability leads to sustainable brand image. That's what I felt, and I wrote a paper on that. So we are spending on sustainable activities, then automatically you will get a sustainable brand image. Suppose if you are doing something which is very good, and momentarily you get brand image, and after that you are not able to sustain that. That should not be the case. If you are doing something very good sincerely to the society, sustainably, then you will automatically get a sustainable brand image in the society. So society will identify you as a helper. Then that gives you a wonderful brand image which can sustain for so long. Okay. So unions, different unions are there in the industry. Those will be managed through HRM. Okay. And licensing with the government, licensing with the external agencies, everything will be looked after by HRM. Again, there is a scope for improvement in those areas also. That's why I call it HRM is inclusive. It can include all the other branches of management, and it is integrative. It can align all these into a single path towards excellence, towards development, towards growth. And if we see the holistic picture, HR finds place in every nook and corner of the industry as well as in the society. So emerging roles of HRM. HRM has different roles to perform. The first and the foremost is the recruitment. There are a number of recruitment strategies. Nowadays, public sectors are going for gate examination, and after that, group discussions are there. Again, examination, group discussions, personal interview, so many types of recruitment is there. Even online also, people are recruiting. And after recruitment, as I have already told you, there is a gap between the skills required and the skills acquired. So how to bridge that? We give training to the people appointed. So there is a burden on the companies to impart training to fill that skill gap. Ideally, that skill gap should be filled there in the educational scenario itself. In the educational institutions only, they should give us the complete product as per the requirements of the industry. But if there is a gap, that has to be filled by the industry or the business organizations. So but it is an additional burden on the business organizations if there is a skill gap. Okay. So now government is saying what is the requirement of the industry, you please spell out. So now the companies have come up with their requirements and that is put on the websites also. Now slowly the government will ask the educational institutions to fill that gap. So that is going to happen very soon. Even in educational policy also, it is clearly spelled out. The student can identify the skill which he wants and he can choose from any of the colleges, and that flexibility is also being set up through the new education policy. But the background work they were doing is this one. Already they have taken the specifications from all the companies, including IT. Suppose one IT engineer, what skills he should have. One electrician, what skill he should have. That is clearly spelled out now. 30% of communication skills, 10% technical skill, like that. So different percentages and different skill sets. So there are a number of skill sets required in the 21st century. Those skill sets in what percentage are required for a particular job. That is being asked by the government and the people have given. So now they will ask the universities to impart those skills. That is going to come. Facilities and welfare. Of course, the employees need to be given facilities like water facility inside the campus. That is the requirement of the management as per Factories Act. We should give all the facilities at workplace, not only at workplace, for residents also. And we should take care of the welfare activities, welfare of the family, welfare of the employee as well as the family is the responsibility of HRM. Again, many companies have come up with so many welfare activities like child education, they are reimbursing, and even children health facilities they are giving. So many welfare activities can be thought of. There is no limit for that. So depending on the strength of the company, they are doing. EHS, what is this? Environment, health and safety. It is an integrated responsibility of HRM to take care of environment, to take care of health and safety of the employees. So every activity, as I told you, it may affect the environment, it may affect the health of the persons, of the self or the other persons around, and safety. What is the safety of the person who is working in the industry? So all these three. Nowadays, there is a SAP software in which these three are integrated, and it has come up with a software called EHS, SAP EHS module. There is a module in SAP. So it will integrate all these three functions into a single module, and it will present the data regarding these three. So what is the environment impact we have in the company, in the organization, and what is the health needs of the people, and what is the current status of health in the organization of the employees, and the safety, what are the safety features and what are the unsafe conditions. Everything can be monitored through the softwares, and that information is also can be looked after by HRM and take the corrective actions. Performance management systems. Again, you are performing and if you are monitoring the performance, then only you can analyze and there will be a scope for improvement. Unless you measure the performance, you cannot improve, right? So measuring the performance in academia also, we find API scores are there. Suppose if I publish in a conference paper, this much marks are there, 2 points, for a single author this much, for the second author this much, like that. Everything is well defined. Okay, so similarly in the industry also there are different techniques. Performance management systems are there. Even in that also there is a huge scope for improvement, and on weekly basis also they are measuring the performance, on monthly basis, on day-to-day basis, and on yearly basis also we can measure the performance and make improvements in that. And we can have a clear-cut career path if we have a full confidence on our performance management system and the promotion policy. So we can, every employee should visualize himself after 10 years I will be there in that particular position. After 20 years I will be there in this particular position. That's how every employee should have a courage to dream about his future. His career path should be very much clear. So we should so that the promotions will take place based on the performance. The incentives and reward management are the part of motivation, and there are n number of incentives offered to the employees, and every organization has its own reward management policies. Even in NTPC also we have so many rewards and recognition systems, and employee should be engaged through continuous motivation through all these management systems. We should always understand labor laws, because we should abide by those laws whenever you are following any strategy, you are making any strategy, or you are doing any work. We should take care of the laws. A job can be performed by ourselves, or it can be subcontracted, or it can be outsourced. So we need not do all the jobs. Some jobs can be left out to others, that is giving on contracts. So we also can do, but we don't have the skilled workforce, or we don't want to concentrate on a particular job, then it can be subcontracted or it can be outsourced completely. So this is another strategy. We can outsource human resource also for certain jobs. That will reduce the cost actually. And there is a huge difference between the permanent employees and the contract employees, because permanent employees loyalty levels are high and they can work more effectively compared to the contract workers. And there is always a debate on this, and many researchers are doing research on comparing these two aspects. And in HRM, the most important thing is to identify the job requirement. This much job, how many man-days are required to do such a particular job? That is based on the job specification, and then we can analyze the job analysis whether these people are sufficient to do this particular job or not. What is the skill set required for a particular job? What is the time required for doing such a particular job? And what is the man-days? That is how man-days are calculated. And then that comes in industrial engineering, which is a part of HRM again. So these industrial engineering studies, again, they go for innovation, and we can have a scope for research in that area also. Security is a major concern, even in IT, even in any industry also. Security of the people working there is the responsibility of the management. Again, it is looked after by HR. leadership and succession planning. Many times leaders, they don't teach their own skills to the successors because in India we see crab mentality. Actually, I have found an article in Economic Times saying Indian crab mentality. In that, if we keep crabs in a bucket, we need not put the lid over it because nobody can jump out of it because everybody will be pulling the legs of the other crabs. So that is how that article says. But I have come up with a new strategy of lifting up, actually learning, teaching. So we are pulling pulling legs. That if somebody feels that somebody may pull his leg, then they don't teach. They don't tell the secrets. They want to keep everything with themselves because they think somebody may pull our leg. Somebody, if they learn, they will come over me. That is how, if they are thinking, then succession planning might not be proper. So the leader should lift the other people up. That is the true leader. Leader should make others leaders. That is the true leadership, and it will ensure proper succession planning. So knowledge should be shared very freely throughout the organization. That has to be ensured through HRM, right? So there will be tacit knowledge which cannot be captured. So it will be transformed after working with the seniors. So that knowledge should slowly transform and percolate to the next level. That is how succession planning can be ensured. Whether that is being properly done or not, we should monitor. That is also an interesting area of research. Normally, traditional knowledge management systems talk about the knowledge acquired through the records, through the manuals in the workplace. Okay, but what about the tacit knowledge? How it is being transformed in the organization is another interesting area of research. Flexibility. So everybody wants to be flexible. Of course, we have reduced the manpower in pandemic. Let us say some private company has reduced the manpower in pandemic. Then the remaining people should be in a position to take up those jobs also, right? So they are overloaded and they need to know the other jobs immediately. They should pick up. That is called flexibility. So everybody should be so flexible and dynamic to understand the new requirements of the job and do well. That is the requirement and need of our. That is called cross-functional performance. In my research, I call it as cross-functional performance. How you are performing in a different function. I'm basically an electrical engineer. Suppose I am put into HR. How will I function? Or in safety or in environment management system. How will I function there? I'm an electrical person. I have been given a mechanical job. How will I do there? That is cross-functional performance. How you are doing well in a different function. That is cross-functional performance. That leads to multi-skill. So this is how skill management should be there. The skill gap should be reduced, which I have already told you. And there is a scope for improvement at each and every sub-process of a supply chain. That is skill supply chain. The moment we are applying supply chain management principles to HRM, then there is a scope for improvement, no? So all those supply chain principles we can apply here also. So we can easily monitor each and every step. It can be measured and there is a scope for improvement, and those strategies again can be adopted, which calls for a research area again. Knowledge management systems, I already talked about this, tacit knowledge. Conducting surveys. This is another important aspect actually. How we are performing. What is the pulse in the pulse of the employees? How they are feeling. What are their feelings? How to get that feedback? That is through surveys. So organizations do surveys to understand what are the opinions of the employees, how they are feeling about the governance, good governance. Should ask for feedback. Feedback is always for continual improvement. What is continual improvement? Continuous is linear. Continual is stepwise. You are performing up to this level, sustain there, incremental improvement, and then sustain there. That is continual improvement. That is how we should improve. That continual improvement is possible when you apply supply chain principles to HRM, right? One more important role of HRM is coordination, cooperation, and communication. Again, all the policies need to be percolated, which I already told you. Communication is the responsibility of HRM. Cooperation, it needs to cooperate with all the other departments. It should gel with all the departments so smoothly for functioning, for smooth functioning of the organization. So that will come through proper coordination. And we should resolve the conflicts among the people, among the teams, among the organizations. We should be in a position to resolve the conflicts. That is another important role of HRM. Data analytics. Again, every HR manager should know the data analytics part, and he should analyze the data, then take the proper decisions and make the strategies out of that. Managing diversity. Yes, it is an important aspect, especially in India. India is a country of diversity. We all know different cultures are there, different languages are there, regions, religions, caste, creed. So many differences are there. That differences are nothing but diversity. So how you are managing those differences in the workplace is managing diversity. Okay. Diversity management means even product diversity is there. That is a different case. When we talk about HRM, it is managing diverse people, right? People from different backgrounds. How we are managing, and even gender diversity is there. So how you are dealing with the women employees, women empowerment, even how you are handling the grievances. Women, a separate cell should be there to deal with women's problems, and how these people are taking up those grievances, how we are handling those. Everything is the responsibility again. And people are under tremendous stress. How to handle those stress situations. That is again, and even some companies come up with the stress management policies also. Even Nuclear Fuel Complex of Hyderabad, they have come up with an innovative stress management policy, and they have proven that managing stress led to enhancement in the productivity. Productivity and the stress are inversely proportional. The stress of the employee gets reduced means the productivity is going high. So they have come up with the statistics also, and everything is fine. They are still following that stress management policy. So again, there is a scope for improvement in this area also. And employee assistance programs. Some people are very much stressed and they are not able to do the duties because of the psychological problems which they have. Those people can be assisted through employee assistance programs, in which the counselors, psychological counselors will be there to assist the employees who are facing psychological problems. So they will be giving online counseling, offline counseling. So many facilities are there, and many companies opt for employee assistance programs. So there are certain small company groups which form this employee assistance program, and a group of counselors will be counseling these people. Conduct and discipline. How to ensure discipline in the organization? Suppose somebody comes drunkard. So how to handle those people who are indisciplined? So again, those penalties and disciplinary proceedings, all these are the responsibilities of HRM again. How many leaves are to be given to the employee? Again, leave management is the responsibility of HRM, and there are many differences between the companies, private, government, public sector. So the leave rules keep on changing, and different companies have different rules and procedures. Basically, those are the responsibilities of HRM. And finally, they conduct exit interview. Why is it conducted? To understand what are the lacunas, why a person is leaving or quitting the job or quitting the company. So we should take the feedback from those people. They may give the genuine feedback as he is already leaving the organization. They may give some important feedback, important comments, so that we can take corrective actions. So that comes as an important feedback for the company. That's why exit interviews are being conducted, and they'll take the feedback from that. I conclude by saying human resource is the key resource for any organization and finds its place in all the functions of the organization. So we can find everywhere, because human resource means what? People. People are only doing the job, no? So everywhere we find people only. Obviously, human resource is nothing but people. So we have to find HR functions in each and every walk of life. Hence, all the strategies and policies are to be holistic, considering the human element in everything. Whenever you are taking any decision, whenever you are framing any policy, any strategy, so human elements should be considered. Even while designing a machine, while doing an ad, while preparing an ad for a TV ad, then also human elements are very much taken care. Even designing a machine, that is ergonomics. In ergonomics, ergonomically designed means what? So every human element is considered in the design stage itself. That is ergonomic design. So human comforts are ensured through ergonomics. So that is how it finds place in every aspect, and it is very well integrated. There is a huge scope for interdisciplinary research in HRM, as it is gelling with all the other areas of management and other areas of engineering, etc. So there is a huge spectrum of scope for research in HRM. Let us explore that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now we'll spend a lot of time. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir,
Yeah,
for
now
your
we'll
valuable
spend some time.
Thank you, sir. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable information. It was a mind-blowing session, and I hope all the participants would gain more knowledge in this session. We are looking forward to you having you again as our guest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Now we are open for any discussion.
Now
Sir.
it's time for question and answer session. Participants can raise their queries.
So you mentioned that there are skills acquired by when we are doing our education system institutions, and the skills are actually required in the industrial part. So
Yes.
can you list out or mention?
Yeah, actually there are 21st century skills, right? Suppose, for example, creative thinking, critical thinking is another skill. Okay, so just wait a minute. Let me try to share a slide also. I have one slide on 21st century skills. Or employability skills. Can you see this? What is employability? Just wait a minute. Okay, let me tell you here only. Hi, I'm Dr. Tamaraj Subbarao. Welcome to you all. Okay, I'm not finding that presentation right now. Or you can watch my YouTube channel. I have listed out all the skills required. One is the communication skill, team performance skill, how you are coping up, and what is social intelligence. So you are working in a team, how you are adaptable to that particular team. Adaptable is one skill. And what is flexibility? Flexibility is, as I already told you, how much flexible you are in different job roles. That is flexibility. But how much adaptable you are to a particular situation. That is adaptability. So adaptability is one such a skill which is required for all the industries, right? And even in pandemic situation also, how much adaptable we are to that particular situation. Those people who are adaptable, right? Otherwise, they are being removed from the jobs. That's what. Even you see in academia also, nowadays everything has become digital. Suppose if I don't know the digital aspects, like I don't know IT, I don't know about this online presentation. So, right? IT skills are very much required. Again, that is another skill required for any kind of job nowadays. That is a 21st century skill requirement of the 21st century. So without IT, we cannot function. So suppose if some student is poor in IT, then their employability, scope of employability is less. Because the requirement is we should have IT skills. So these are the important skills. Communication skills. So I have so much of knowledge, but I am not able to communicate. Or I have some important communication to be given in a team, but I am not communicating that important information, which may lead to less productivity. So these are the important skills very much required for any industry. That's why they are called employability skills. So this is very important, and these skills are to be imparted through education. Even in education policy also, they have clearly mentioned interdisciplinary skill, adaptability. All these are very important. Interdisciplinarity. Suppose I'm an electrical engineer, but I don't know something about the other features. But industry needs a multi-talented professional. So skills and IT skills, communication skills, soft skills, hard skills, technical skills. So remaining things are there. Technically, they are not sound. That also won't work. So technical skills are required. Communication skills, coordination skills, and the remaining management skills also.
Sir, can I?
Are very much. Yes.
Sir, thank you very much for your presentation. Sir, I'm surprised that, in the list of what I should say, the recent trends in HRM, you did not mention about something called compatibility, which I believe, compatible, that team thing which we say, because in organizations, people are of different cultures. So they come together and they work. So don't you think compatibility also is very much required, sir?
Yes, wonderful. That's what I already told you in managing diversity. There are some different backgrounds. They are to be treated equally and they should coordinate properly. Then only we can bring synergy in a team, right? So compatibility is
Yes.
almost similar to adaptability, and which will be connected to diversity. Managing diversity will ensure everything, and it is a sub part of that. Wonderfully told, right? Yes, compatibility should always
Sir,
be there.
I'm little curious, in the sense like, since you work for an organization, do you have people coming from different countries or states, like, working for your organization? If there are, what
Yeah.
are the steps, what are the methods that your organization deals or uses to bring in that compatibility?
Yes, actually, our organization is also pan-India organization, in which
Okay,
people
sir.
from different backgrounds come and work
Okay.
together. And we have, suppose we have plants in all different states throughout India, right? So
Yeah.
I'm from Andhra Pradesh, and I have been transferred here to Odisha. I'm working here. So,
Okay.
and people from other parts of the country are working in Telangana, in Andhra,
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
So we have a transfer policy in which we will be rotated also throughout our
Okay.
organization. So we will be exposed to different cultures and we will be understanding and being adaptable. We call it agility and mobility.
Okay.
Okay. So we should be so much
Yeah.
agile and we should be so much mobile. So we'll be moving and we should adapt to new plant, new
Environment, work
culture,
environment.
new situations. So everything we should be immediately getting adaptable to that. And we will understand so many cultures also. And how to integrate that again is, suppose we have a canteen mode or APC and it is given to one particular organization, that is ICL, Indian Coffee House. So they normally provide uniform food throughout. We go, similar type of food will be there, including some local flavors. So
Okay.
that is how we feel comfortable in moving throughout our organization. So and even in other organizations also, they will have certain strategies to maintain the diversity. That is very important, and we should understand their feelings, their emotions, and take care of the culture, local culture. Everything should be integrated, well integrated in diversity management. Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Thank you,
feel
sir. Thank you.
that India is the best place to work for diversity management issues, right? So because we have a lot of diversity and unity in diversity, we only can bring. Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay. Thank you, sir.
and give
Thank you very
and
much.
set the example for the world.
Yes, yes, perfectly said, sir.
Sir,
Sir. Yeah, please.
sir, can you give some more details on the stress management policy you referred to some
Yes.
Hyderabad company or something?
Yeah. It is a nuclear fuel complex, and actually International Stress Management Association, ISMA, ISMA is there. From there, from that organization, and they have implemented a well-drafted stress management policy. Applied in a conference, stress management conference, and have taken the inputs for inputs and suggestions from all the participants of that conference, and I was also there in that conference actually. So they have taken the suggestions from all those people and incorporated in the stress management policy, and by the next conference they have come up with an implemented policy. And in the next coming conference, they have shown the results also. So that is how they have well demonstrated the results of what they did. They have done very small aspects. Even in our organization also, we have employee assistance programs, which I have already mentioned. So whenever someone feels stressed, we can call and get the help from the psychological counseling aspects. Yeah. And even we can spread positivity also through mind management techniques, and even meditation. Even meditation programs NTPC is also organizing, and other companies are also organizing yoga, meditation. These are the integral part of our training programs. Okay, exclusive training programs are being organized for meditation, yoga, and all. So even from the entrance level itself, executive trainees, the new recruitees will be undergoing all these training programs. From there onwards, it continues. Yes. So that is how we can also manage
Okay, thank you,
stress
sir.
at individual level. And even stress, actually individual stress and organization also has some stress. Okay. So that both can be induced to each other. So I will be inducing some stress to the organization, and the organization may induce some stress to me, and we will be inducing some stress to home, at home, right? So stress is always transferred from one to another. Suppose I am under tremendous stress, I will be sharing something to you, means I am slightly transferring stress to you. So that is how stress is being transferred. And similarly, happiness also can be spread in the similar fashion. So if I am happy, then I will be sharing happiness with you. So that is how, if we spread more happiness, there won't be any time to spend on stress. And simultaneously, normally how stress is happening, goal versus, if there is a gap, then there is a stress. So either you have to reduce your goal or increase your skill to match that. That gap only is stress in my perspective. So either you have to decrease or compromise on your goal and get satisfied with whatever you achieve, or upgrade your skill to reach your goal. So that is the simple policy I normally follow for stress management, and I advise other people also to follow that. Yeah. Stress normally happens because of that only.
Okay, sir.
Goal
Thank you, sir.
and achievement, right? Yeah, thank you.